Welcome, welcome. My name is Dayna Schmidt-Johnson. I'm the community manager of the Ritual Society, as well as the house astrologer. And today we are going to be talking about human design. This is the first in our series of monthly teachers, and we are going to dive deep into human design today. You may have heard about human design, maybe you haven't heard about it, but bring your curiosity today and have an open mind, because you're going to be quite interested in this topic by the end of it, I promise you. And because I'm no human design expert, we have with us today Rowena Winkler, who knows way more about human design than I do, and will be sharing some of the juicy details along the way. So welcome, Rowena. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Dayna. I am super excited to talk about human design with you today.
So am I. So tell us, who are you? What do you do?
Sure. So I'm Dr. Rowena Winkler, and I call myself a cosmic catalyst coach and realignment strategist. Now, what the heck does that mean? I help women find their voice and step into their higher vibes, soul level selves. And how I do that is through my expertise in communication, intuitive marketing, and I also work in modalities such as astrology, tarot, and of course, human design, which we're talking about today.
Amazing. Yes, tarot and astrology are definitely our hottest topics in the Ritual Society. Mm-hmm. So how did you first discover human design?
Yeah, so it was actually through a little app that you may have heard of called Clubhouse. It was, 2 years ago at this point during the pandemic. I am an extrovert by nature. You may get a sense of that during this talk today. But as a lot of people during lockdowns, I was trying to find community, and I was trying to find ways to connect with people and to find people that are like-minded. And it was through a series of different Clubhouse rooms that I stumbled across human design. And I said, what is this? And that's how I found my coach that I had worked with, and how it kind of just snowballed from there. I thought it was such an interesting tool. And of course, we'll talk about what human design actually is, but I'm super nerdy by nature. You know, I have a PhD, of course, so I love learning. I'm a curious person. And when I found out about human design, as with many of these things, I just dove right in and learned all I could, and I'm still learning. So yeah, that's how I first learned about it.
So it kind of falls into the same category as tarot and astrology, but let's talk about that. What the heck is human design?
Yeah, sure. So astrology actually is part of the human design. So this is a system that was essentially channeled by Ra Uru Hu in 1987. And it's this process, this system that integrates a variety of different areas. So astrology is one of them, the I Ching, the Kabbalah, the chakra system, and also quantum physics. So a lot of different areas that I'm sure folks in the society are interested in. And it's all this like wham, bam, thank you, ma'am system. And it's this human design chart or your body graph. And that's based, similar to astrology, on your time, date, and location of birth. And it's just this incredibly powerful, useful tool that helps folks reach that authentic alignment. That's the terminology that I like to use in my messaging and with my clients. So it helps us step into who we are and what we're meant to do on this plane, in this world.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. So, okay. You go online, you can find a free human design chart on several different sites, right?
Yep.
And when you first look at your human design chart, it can be really overwhelming. It's kind of like when you first get into astrology or tarot, it's like, what do all these things mean? Yeah. And, you know, the rabbit holes you can go down. Where should someone who's totally new to human design and just seeing their chart for the first time, where should they begin?
Yeah. No, I know a lot of folks, my clients included, when I bring up human design and pull up their chart, they're like, whoa, Rowena, what is all this? Because it could look like a bunch of gobbledygook when you're first looking at your chart. So similar to astrology, as you mentioned, right? You know, when you talk about astrology, at first you just talk about sun sign, right? Or your zodiac sign. So in a similar fashion, when you talk to folks about your human design, oftentimes one of the first things you ask each other is, what's your type? So there are different types in human design, and I can quickly run through those so that folks can find their human design charts free, as you mentioned, and get a sense of what type they are. So first, we have the generators, and your gal here is a generator. It makes up most of the population. It's about 70% of the population. And essentially, us generators, we're the worker bees, right? We're the ones that are supposed to go around and like do all the things. The Energizer Bunny was an archetype that has been used to describe generators. We just keep going and going and going. But here's the thing, we're not meant to initiate. We're not meant to start things, which I know yourself included, Dayna, when you heard about that our design is meant for us to wait for a response. And typically it's a sacral response. And I'll talk about that in a little bit later. But essentially, when we're presented with an opportunity, and generators receive lots of opportunities because, again, we carry things out. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no, which can be very challenging for generators because, as with astrology, as with tarot, you know, there are shadow and light sides of all of these tools and modalities. Generators can become people pleasers if they're not careful, right? Because they want to do all the things and we can get very overwhelmed, very burnt out. You know, at the time of this recording, I was just talking to you that I got COVID, right? And as a generator, that was really hard for me to just rest and relax. So that's the generators in us. So if you're not meant to do it, you'll know, like your sacral energy will be like, that's not it. And also what's interesting about generators is we vocalize a lot. So I know back when I was in grad school and I would watch presentations, my friends would make fun of me because I'm that person that's like, yeah, and like I would be like vocalize, but that's a generator trait because it's our sacral energy being like giving us the cues that, yes, this is something that is in alignment. So those are the generators. And then we have the manifesting generators, which is similar, but a little bit different, right? So it's still that generator energy. It's still doing things, but because it's a manifesting generator, you also can initiate things. So, you know, it's not just about the response. You can initiate things easily, but that's after receiving the response. So, you know, compared to a pure generator where they, you know, get that hell yes, and then they go and do the work, manifesting generators can get the hell yes to start something, but they don't necessarily have to complete the project, right? They don't necessarily have to. And that was something when I was talking to one of my clients who's a Mani-Gen, and that was like a light bulb in her head, like, oh my gosh, wait, I can start it, but I don't have to finish it. The pure generators can finish it. If you want to work on it, but then it doesn't seem in alignment anymore, that's fine. Go ahead and move it along. You did what you had to do as your design to initiate and start that, right? And because manifesting generators, or Mani-Gens, as we like to call them, can do many different things, they are true multi-hyphenates. They bop from thing to thing. And sometimes people aren't down for that, right? They're like, oh, you're always changing your mind. You're always doing something. But I just want to affirm the Mani-Gens out there. You know, my husband's a manifesting generator. It's okay. Like that's your design to start things. And if it's not good with you anymore, then move it along. So it could be this very windy path that Mani-Gens may feel self-conscious about it, but trust your gut. You're very adaptable and very agile, and that is your strength, right? So those are the Mani-Gens. And then the next type that I'll speak to are the projectors. I love projectors. They're, you know, I have a lot of projector friends. I think projectors get along really well with generators, and they make up about 17 to 20% of the population. And the thing with projectors is that they need to receive the invitation before they act, right? And I have a really good friend who's another human design expert, Rosie Crescatelli. And she uses this great visual of projectors as these lighthouses, right? They are the ones that are guiding the path for everyone else. When they receive the invitation, they're the ones that come up with like the game plan and the blueprint, and they essentially illuminate the way for us generators and mani-gens to get things done. So the other thing with projectors, which I had a projector client that had to wrap their brain around this, because they're not a pure generator, projectors work in waves and cycles. So there are moments where a projector can be super productive and doing all the things, but then they need to rest. And especially in the US, right, in this westernized world, and I know there's probably folks around the world, but at least here in the US, we're conditioned to act as generators, right? We live in a very generator-like society. So I always talk to my projector clients of, nay, nay, no, no, that's not your design. Projectors are best in leadership roles where they're the ones that have the big, broad view vision, and then they delegate it out to us generators to really get things going. They develop the systems, the structures, they create the roles. They really are the ones that get the plan in place so that we can get those things done. So those are the projectors. They're like the director of the show, to use a fun theater reference. And then we have the manifestors. So the manifestors make up 9% of the population. So not as many as, our projector friends or our generator friends and mani-gens. Those folks are the true initiators. So, I mentioned how in manifesting generators, they initiate and respond. Manifestors are the catalysts. They are the ones that are going to kick things off, and they're the ones that identify any obstacles or challenges. They're the ones that are going to, clear the way and help us make those decisions. And manifestors, they have potential to create great impact. And they have this, magnetism and charisma. Like, you can probably sense a manifestor when they walk in the room. Like, when they enter space, they just have this aura that's inviting. They have a lot of innovative ideas. I have a friend who's a manifestor, and yeah, she's the ideas queen, right? Like, she has this vision for what we can do and how we can improve our lives and what we can do in the future. But unlike our projector friends, who are also, they can also be seen as leaders, they don't need to be invited. They get the call and they go. Like, they don't want to be micromanaged. They don't want to be told what to do. They're just going to go and initiate it. But unlike the generators, they don't have, they're not Energizer bunnies like the generators. They also need the time to recharge, and they also operate in more of a sprint fashion, right? So they like get a burst of, okay, I'm gonna do all these things. All right, now I need to recharge. Okay, and then I'm gonna go again, and then I recharge. So, and that involves, inner work and doing all the things that I know the Ritual Society guides us on, and doing that work is really, really important to have moments of meditation and mindfulness and inward work to recharge. It's really important. And then last, but certainly not least, because they're the rarest in the human design types, is the reflectors. Reflectors, they only make up about 1% of the population. So super duper rare. I have a friend who recently discovered that she's a reflector, and I was like, what? It's really interesting. Reflectors, they are the empathiest of empaths. They can read the environment, they can feed into energy, they are insightful and intuitive, and they can see things that probably a lot of the other types, obviously because they're rare, that they won't be able to see. And because they're so receptive, they operate like with things like lunar cycles, right? Operating off of the moon, and they are very in the moment, right? That's just moment to moment. They are some of the most present people that you can meet in your entire life. And I don't know about you, but I know a lot of us, we're not always operating in the moment, right? We're always thinking about what happened in the past, all our baggage from the past, and then ruminating on the future, but not the reflectors. They are so open and they're so permeable. And so as a result of that, they really need to have that energy work. They really need to be able to set those energetic boundaries and do, energetic practices and cleansing, and also surrounding themselves with people who are going to uplift and feed into that positive energy and not bring them down. So, because if not, as I'm sure you can understand, a lot of folks watching can understand, when we have those energetic vampires, it's no bueno. So I'm going to pause there before I go into my next spiel. But those essentially are the types. It's like very similar to your sun sign in astrology. Basically, when folks say, what's your human design? That's going to be one of the first things you say.
Okay, so we're looking at the different types, and each one of those types affects us a little bit differently, and how we should be best utilizing our energies, essentially, right? Yep. So that's just one part of human design. That's
just one part,
right? That's just like the baseline top part. What is your type? Yep. What else can we learn from human design?
Yeah. So the other piece that is helpful when talking about human design is your authority. And what that authority is, it's your inner knowing, or I like to call it, I call it the inner muse, right? It's like that inner wisdom that guides you throughout your life. It helps with your decision making. So along with your type, by knowing your authority and how you are meant to make decisions in the day-to-day, it can be another fantastic tool to help you. So I'm going to start with the sacral, because I mentioned that as a generator. So your sacral authority, it's about 35% of the population operate using this authority, and the majority of it are the generator folks. And that's, again, that waiting to respond that I know that you hate, Dayna. But here's the thing. We don't have to hate on it, because as I mentioned, it's going to be happening all the time. We get all the things are coming to us. It's just a matter of feeling into that sacral energy and getting that hell yes versus the no, right? So there's not going to be a dearth of opportunities for folks with a sacral authority. It's just a matter of really attuning into that sacral and really feeling in like what's coming up. And again, as I mentioned, it may be vocalization. It may be like a like a uh-huh, or like a uh-uh. So you will get that. And then we also have folks that operate with an emotional authority. I have a client that has this authority, and that's more of using our solar plexus chakra, right? As you know, solar plexus is based on like confidence and how we show up in that sense. And it's more of this like gut reaction, being able to pick up of the emotions in that moment and like allowing for time with that. So as you probably know, and lots of people know, there are times when we react or make decisions based on our first initial emotional reaction, right? And with an emotional authority, we are invited to sit back with that and just kind of see the waves that roll through, right? Like, let's not go off that first, like, oh, I'm so mad, or I'm so, right? That there's going to be things happening, and to witness that without judgment or attachment. And then when we're feeling good and we know this is like, okay, this is how I'm feeling in my gut, then moving on with there. And then the splenic authority, that's about 11% of the population. And that's the spleen in human design is tied to our intuition. So that is going moment by moment, making decisions, really tapping into that intuitive vibe, feels like really becoming, really connecting with spirit, source, universe to give you that information that you need. Some people have no inner authority and it's all external, right? They just receive information and make decisions based off of what's happening around me and my environment. What are these people saying, right? So these folks like to verbalize or, talking out loud or brainstorming, or, hey, can you be a sounding board as I vocalize this, and having folks mirror back to them what might be useful. Those are for the folks with no inner authority. And then we have the folks that have the self-project authority, which is basically the opposite. So they don't listen to it. They're like, no, thank you, conditioning. No, thank you, society. No, thank you, people. I'm going to tap into what I'm thinking and projecting onto myself. I'm going to listen to my own voice. I'm going to listen to what my soul and spirit has to say, and I don't care about what it says. And then lastly, as I mentioned with the reflectors, we have the lunar cycle authority. And my reflector friend, I remember her saying, when I found out that I have to make decisions based off of the moon cycles, like, how's that going to work? Do I have to tell this job that I got an offer from that I have to wait 28 and a half days to like know what to do? So yeah, that's how they operate. They go off of moon cycles and they work very closely with the moon. I know y'all do full moon and new moon rituals, right? So they work very intimately with that energy. So again, when we talk about human design, like for example, when someone asks what my human design is, I will say I am a sacral generator. So that's how you go about that. Oh, and then I forgot the authority, which is the ego authority, and not to be confused with ego, but this is the heart, a heart center. So being self-trusting and whatnot, that you are really tapping into that heart chakra and having that open heart and listening to that muscle. Okay. Whew. Yeah, that was a lot. Again, like, happy to answer questions, and folks, we can maybe have a handout or something. I don't know, but I hope friends are taking notes.
Yeah, there is just so much to it. And we've literally dove into 2 pieces.
Yeah, seriously.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very interesting to me with human design. I feel like so many of the things that you're talking about don't really jive with how the world works. Right? Like you said, your friend is like, well, do I have to wait until the full moon to tell about this job? Like, that's not how the world works. Or the idea of like responding to things. Now, fortunately for those of us who respond to things or need to be or are responsive like that, like you said, there's no shortage of opportunities, but we're also being told by the world to go out and create and do and initiate, when really only a fraction of us should be doing that. So how do you work with your clients to kind of work through that disconnect between what the world is asking of us and what our human design is asking of us?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, so my LLC is called Journey to Consciousness. And I feel like that's just part of, right? It's part of this journey of discovering yourself, discovering who you are authentically and, without the conditioning and everything, and using tools like human design to help us tap into, oh, that's who I really am. Honestly, in working with clients and talking about their human design, it's like a huge sigh of relief, because it allows us to be like, oh, that's why I'm like this. Or, oh, I'm not weird or different or broken or messed up. This is my design. And even if it may not jive with, as you mentioned, with how our environments are, that's okay, because that's our design. And so once that realization happens, that epiphany, aha, like, ooh, wait, that makes sense. Then it's a matter of finding the confidence and courageousness and gumption to just make the decision to live in your human design and live in your alignment, despite what the outside world is telling us, despite what everyone else is doing. And that is so powerful, because people are going to notice, people are going to witness and get a sense like, she's different. She seems happier, like what's going on here? And it really is finding that alignment. And it really, for me personally, when I discovered my human design and that I was a sacral generator, and reflecting on my own people pleasing tendencies and how I can move out of that, it really gave me more context on how to operate in the day-to-day in the world. It gave me the language to be able to wrap my brain around why I operate the way that I do. And it helped with my relationships as well. By knowing that my husband is a Manny-gen, I can't get too frustrated when he's like, let's go here, boop, bop, bop, it gives context, similar to astrology, right? Like when we know people's big three, for example, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, there's the Virgo, right? Like it gives us more insight so that we can interact with each other as we authentically are. And it helps with relationships.
Mm. So then maybe that answers my next question, which is, what is your favorite feature about human design? Is it the relationship piece, or is there like something that really gets you?
Okay. I don't mean to throw yet another piece of human design, but I do want to throw this, and hopefully this won't take as long as the other pieces. So another part of human design is your profile. So as I mentioned, when I say that I'm a sacral generator, typically, since I have more knowledge about this system, I say I'm a 4-6 sacral generator. And the profile is another way to get even more insight on your human design, because it helps determine the best way, the most aligned way to fulfill your purpose on this planet. Now, I know it's like very like, woo, but seriously, when I found out my profile, I was like, oh. Okay. So the profile, as I mentioned, I'm a 4-6. It's based on 2 numbers, and the 2 numbers are your conscious self and your unconscious self. So I'll use mine as an example, and then I can give the other numbers. So the 4 in human design is the opportunist. And in my case, I consciously live that out. The opportunist is the networker, the person that loves to cultivate relationships, that likes to build community, right? As we're doing here with the society. It's the quality of an opportunist life is dependent on the quality of those relationships. So consciously, and that's totally me. I mentioned I'm an extrovert. I love meeting new people. I love working with my clients. I love building community. Like that's totally my vibe. The 6 is the unconscious. That's something that's going on behind the scenes that you may not be so aware of, but once you figure that out in human design, holy moly, like that's going to give you so much information and guidance moving forward. And the 6 in human design is the role model. And what's interesting about the role model is it comes in 3 phases, right? So from when you're born, age 0 to around 30 years old, that phase of your life is basically the trial and error. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to mess things up. You're going to figure things out. Like what's your deal? What's your vibe? And then between ages 30 to 50, which homegirl, me, that's where I'm at right now. It's formulating the learning, right? It's like, okay, I went through these experiences. What's the message? What am I learning? What are my takeaways from this? And then the last phase is 50 plus. And that's when you become the wise sage who gets to share that wisdom and gets to help other people as they go through their life journey. So when I found that out, I was like, oh my gosh, this resonates so clearly with my mission as a coach. Like this is essentially what I want to do. I want to build community with people and find women and help them, and then use my own life, my own mess to become my message to then, you know what I mean? So it's just like, whoosh. So that was just amazing. So let me quickly talk about the other types in the profile. So I mentioned it's 1 to 6. Number 1s are the investigators. Those are like our Nancy Drews, I guess, right? So like the researcher, like wants to study things very deeply. I work with a lot of investigator types because I work with a lot of academics. So it's very much in alignment with that, right? So studying things, researching things. The 2 is the hermit, which I know is a major arcana in the tarot. So the 2s are And the way that this is manifested in human design is the hermits have this innate, natural, inherent knowledge. They have something that they know so deeply, and they're so naturally gifted in that thing that per your human design, like your job is to, whatever that is, get out there and share that with others. So you are just naturally gifted at something. The 3 is the martyr. Now, again, like a lot of these, like people are like, oh no, I'm the martyr. But essentially what that means is that they're learning by experimentation and failure, essentially, right? Like, and they're not afraid to fail. They are those daredevils that are willing to get out there, try all the things, be like, oh, that didn't work. All right, let me do this other thing. Like they are, and I admire that as someone who is like very like risk averse when it comes to things like that. So those are our martyrs. Those are our 3s. I mentioned the opportunists. That's the 4. Those are the folks that love the people and love to build community. The 5s are the heretics. And that's this, actually one of my coaches is a 5. It's this big hero energy. It's like, I'm here to save the world, and I don't care what you think. A lot of the heretics, as the name suggests, deal with, maybe folks don't like you, or folks are like, don't understand your vibe, but it doesn't matter, because you have this vision for how the world could be, and you're here just making it work and making it happen. And then, as I mentioned, the role model is the 6, and they have the 3 phases of life. So again, it's just another layer that I think is so interesting. And I love that the profile is the 2 numbers, because it gets a sense of like, okay, this is where I'm at, and like where I kind of want to go. You know what? This just came through right now. It's very like North Node, South Node vibes. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And I was going to ask if the numbers are always like the small, like yours is 4, 6. Is it always the smaller number than the bigger number, or no?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Okay. Depending on the design, it can be either which way, any different combination. And that'll give you.
Could you be like a 3, 3? Is that possible?
I don't know. I've never come across a 3, 3. I would, based off of what it is.
Somebody who has the same number on both sides.
Yeah. Though that I feel like that's like a perfectly aligned person, right? Because it's like their conscious and subconscious are. Right. So in human design, there's also like the planets. So very similar to astrology planets. And you can have same, like in that sense. And that's again, it's unconscious and conscious. But I've never seen a profile that's the same. I don't know. Maybe that person's out there. If that's you, let us know.
Yeah, no kidding. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah.
Amazing. So Rowena, human design at the end of the day is such a big concept, a big topic, but really helps us align better with who we are, get to know ourselves on another level, right?
Yeah.
I love that so much. And we are so lucky to have you coming into the society on July 6th to talk more about human design. If you are not part of the Ritual Society, you are going to want to get on that wait list, because we're going to open this up. You're going to have the chance to be in Rowena's class in July and learn so much more top to bottom about all of these bits and pieces about human design. If this sparked your interest, and how could it not? I'm sure you're Googling your human design as we've spoken through this. You'll definitely want to jump in and join us. So Rowena, I am so grateful that you've been here today to explain so much more than I think I've ever learned from just reading a website, right? What else do we need to know? Last takeaways from human design.
Yeah, so I think it's just beautiful. And by the way, thank you so much for having me. And I'm so looking forward to the class. First of all, just want to say, as we mentioned in the beginning, when you first see your chart, you're just like, what is all this? But that's the beauty of it, right? We barely scratched the surface today in our conversation. I know I said a lot and there's the different, but honestly, that was just 3 pieces of the puzzle. There's so much more, and we can get more in depth with that with the class. But I think that's what's so beautiful about that. It's always it's a system that works hand in hand, right? As I mentioned, I also read tarot, I also use astrology. Astrology is part of human design. These are all tools, as we talked about, that helps us gain insight on who we are and how we can show up more as ourselves. And so I would invite y'all to, I personally use the site mybodygraph.com. I'm not getting paid to say that, but that's the site that I use. There's many other sites as well to get your free, totally free human design chart. And I'm looking forward to chatting with folks and meeting more folks next month to learn more about what you've learned about your charts.
Amazing. Well, once again, thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you in July.
Yes, I look forward to it as well. Thank you so much, Dayna, and I look forward to seeing everyone next month.
Thanks, everyone.